Hey, Phil. Let me
Hey there.
welcome back. Let me give you an update on what we've been doing and um, how we've been trying to tackle orchestration in our think tank, and then
Okay.
share a little bit around where we're going, and then also we can pick back up on the playbook. But while you were out, we we started really diving into what's the value of this thing called orchestrating, and what does orchestration mean, and why do executives need it? And if we are orchestrating, how is that different than what other people do, and how do we clarify what it is? Which led us into, discussions like, well, what are the challenges that we solve? What is the value or the economic impact of bringing people together and simplifying things, et cetera? How would we communicate the outcomes we're driving in a way that's additive to what everybody's doing? Um, Things like that.
Yeah, and I went back and watched last week, I think. I kind of caught up a little bit, or maybe it was the week before with Barry. But it's been a crazy few weeks for me, so I don't even know who I am anymore. So this identity stuff would be valuable for me.
You're Phil,
Okay.
and you live in Texas. You just came back from vacation, and it's normal to have a reentry period.
Yeah, this is more like a support group. You're like, hi, my name is Phil. I'm an
Right.
enablement, and I have some serious problems.
And their ecosystem and problems in nature. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna have to drop and rejoin, so I'm sorry. Um, so
Oh,
you
you've
guys
got.
carry on, and I'll jump in. I feel like I've been jumping in to kind of catch up a little bit on some of that stuff, but I don't want to be a speed bump, especially now that I have to go to the principal's office. So I'll let you know how it goes when I get back.
All right, man.
All right,
Good
thanks.
luck.
Bye.
All right. I guess he got this is one of the things about orchestrating. Sometimes you get in trouble because
Hey,
you're pushing the system. The ecosystem fights back, you know? We'll see. Hopefully he makes it out alive. But one of the things that this is leading me to think about, can you see the 7 observations leading to productitis?
mhm.
So one of the things that we've been doubling down on, uh, Scott and I, and the changes that we're trying to drive, is this idea of that productitis is real. So in the webinars last year, he talked about productitis, and productitis is a real thing. It's an often hidden disease, and there are a lot of factors that create productitis, which is this over obsession with product, and the belief that the product's features and functions are what will help clients be successful. And the whole company is set up around product. The financial teams drive visibility into product, and everybody inspects product sales. And yet when you try to sell a platform or a cross sell in nature, it requires a lot of different capabilities, including features and functions, and the quote unquote platforms, but also expertise of people and skills, right? Processes, things like that. So productitis has been a challenge. So do you all remember the productitis discussions, or do we need to go over some of the productitis stuff? Because Phil is fighting productitis at his company. If you go, if he makes it out alive from the principal's office, if you go to the earnings calls for his company, the CEO is saying, "Hey, we are going to be and double down on we are a product company. We're going to double down on product. We're going to be a great product organization." And he's trying to sell value and orchestrate an ecosystem. So he's fighting productitis, and we all are if we're orchestrating.
Absolutely.
So it's a thing. It's kind of it's like Scott used the analogy of the Brooklyn Bridge, and in when they were building the Brooklyn Bridge, there were challenges with the construction workers who would go down into the river, deep down in the river, and work on the caissons, the footings for the bridge uprights to stand on. And the way that they would work on those is that they would pump air into those caissons and push the water out so that they could pour concrete and stuff. Well, people were getting sick and they didn't know why, and a lot of people died. And they found out that there was this hidden thing called the bends, and the bends is, you know, it's pressure sickness basically, and they were surfacing too quickly, which caused issues with their blood, and they didn't know it. So it was a hidden problem right in front of their face, and that's what productitis is. It's this hidden problem, and
It's hidden at the same time as it's right in your face.
right.
But I think it might be easier for us as orchestrators to see it, whereas for the people who are in it, it's like you can't see the forest for all of the trees, right?
Mhm.
So and how do you explain to the head of product marketing that, boy, you are suffering from productitis?
Right.
Without completely offending and insulting that person.
Right. Yeah. And it's like Eric's story. So you have to tell that story about the life jackets when Phil gets back.
Yeah, I told that to my wife. I love that.
So yeah, so when Phil gets back, we have to tell it. But it's like this idea that, well, we have all the messaging, we have all of the playbooks, we built it into a portal. All the salespeople have to do is say these things, and we fully equip them, and they're not using it. They're dumb. They're stupid. Clearly we've done all this work to help them be successful, but it's all around the product, and that's not what they need. They need some of it. So how do you explain that to? I got an email. Let me see if I can dig this up. It was the perfect productitis email. Let me see if I still have it.
Well, I think we talked about examples of productitis a while back in one of the earlier think tanks, and I remember, like, I think if your website says demo, I remember someone saying, right, get a free demo. Again, it's all about, maybe that might have been you, Eric. I don't know. It's all about
when that's above the fold in your first choice.
Yeah.
Which is worse, demo or let me tell you about my founders?
Yeah, really.
Right.
Well, let me tell you about the founders. That's the worst part. It's like, what? Does it really matter? Forgive me, Brian. I interrupted you. So.
Oh, that's all right. I'm looking for this email.
Let me know when you find it, because and I recall from earlier sessions when we talked about productitis stuff, in the end, it's the salespeople that were really kind of stuck in the middle of this. If I'm not, well, no, maybe there were three.
Mm-hmm.
Three scenarios, if I'm not mistaken, then about how productitis shows up.
Yeah, you can show up and throw up. You can have a heroic effort to simplify it, or you can tackle the ecosystem and simplify it on behalf of salespeople.
And so again, is our working on the ecosystem then a reduction in productitis, a change from that? Is that what the value is, right? If the issue or the challenge is the productitis, and the value of orchestrating is it focuses on the customer and their outcomes, and engagement that's around their challenges and issues, and everyone's pushing in that direction, that's what we should be doing. So we're, instead of spending all the time talking about the product.
Yeah. So, and the challenge is more around how do you help people see it, to Helena's point. Like, it's a terrible analogy, but it works for me. but it's this idea that in the 1940s, 1930s, people would die and you just don't talk about it. Death was just private thing in the United States. You don't talk about it. And a lot of the challenges back then were undiagnosed because people were very private. Things like cancer. So it was taboo to talk about somebody having cancer if they knew that that's what it was. And if you fast forward to today, cancer has been, normalized in a way, from breast cancer awareness, colon cancer awareness, brain cancer. There's all of this. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to go out and run a marathon and raise money for it. It's okay to donate and let's, wear pink and all this other stuff. It's been brought into the mainstream. Now it's acceptable to talk about these things. And I feel like productitis is this thing that's not acceptable to talk about. And the challenge is how do we get into a space where it's okay to talk about, we have this cancer. It's okay, let's treat it, as opposed to saying, no, we don't, and having people get really offended about it and get very defensive. And then how do we bring it up in a way that helps tackle it? And I just don't think people see it unless they've lived through it,
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of this.
I think one thing you also can say about productitis, it's representative of a very inside out view, right? And as we are striving for a go-to customer strategy, it's absolutely necessary to turn or flip the coin and have an outside in view. And where are you standing when you have that view? Well, you should be standing in the shoes of the customer.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if it begins even further upstream than that, in the sense that, okay, they built something that they think is going to solve a problem, and maybe it doesn't to the degree that they'd like it to, and now they're trying to sell it and fit this product into and create demand for something that isn't necessarily just a thought, that. And so if that's the case, then let's really push on the product and the features and all these things so they get people to buy into this, solution that's maybe really not that great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot around that. It's there's a lot of I mean, the company's set up around product.
Right.
Go to earnings calls. They're all about products. It does start there.
Yeah, because if you make it about, again, at this point we've created this product and it's about, you could change it and change the talk track in terms of how you're conversing around this or engaging around how the product again it solves the problems that you have, or but it'd be tough to get them to turn everything they're doing now and say, well, no, you need to completely rethink how you're having these conversations.
I found the email. So here's the Finney Awards, Killer Content Awards, right? So the categories: audio content, buyer focused content, interactive content, influencer, design concept, nurture, package, publisher, research-based content, video content, short-term content, sales enablement content, multi-touch campaigns. You can win awards in all of this, which means people are competing for all of this, and they submit in order to win a Finney Award. So their Finney Award winners are the ones that create the headlining acts. Look how detailed all of this is. And oh, by the way, here's about us. But let's go over to buyer focused content. See how jazzercise this is? Momentum feed. They're winners. How to engage top CMOs. You don't need to make a huge investment. And it's like, here's their content. They won awards for this, right? So they win awards for this type of sizzle stuff.
What's the rubric though for the content though for the awards? Is it? It's obviously not the most customer centric. That's not the most important part of the. It's not the most user friendly for salespeople. That's maybe not. I wonder.
I don't know what the rubric is.
Or is it
Good
just
question.
you say it's
They're winners, Mark. They won.
So what you're saying is they're focusing on the content instead of focusing on, again.
I don't know. What I'm saying is, what's the alternative to this? If there's a checklist that drives, and your question about the rubric makes sense. If we're marketing causes, we're marketing causes and inspiring girls to consider careers in STEM, and they won the award for that, right? So this is playing on emotion, etc., right? So and about a cause. So what's the rubric to score that? I don't know. But whatever that is, that's the challenge with going after productitis. Hey, don't do this as much, or hey, we already do this. We already do this. We do customer lifecycle marketing. I'm with SAP. We're a big company, and look at our content. Get the New Age of Fraud ebook to discover 4 simple and effective ways our product can help you. And they're winning awards. They just won an award for this.
Okay, so
By turning on SAP's Concur free Google Map feature, Mark, you can fight fraud. See that?
Mhm.
If you fast track your employees' mileage best practices, you can fight fraud and save your company. And they are award winners, top of the chart, SAP Concur, high five, Finney Award winners. So how do you go in and say, look, productitis is the problem? When, look, I mean, this is 1 out of maybe 100 awards you can win for that type of content.
Well, I'm about to start work with the company very soon, trying to enable them a bit. And they provided me with a lot of content. And just by looking at it, without even reading it, just by looking at it, it was just this immediate red flag productitis.
So
And-
what makes it, what were some of the things that popped to your mind that says it's productitis centric? Or that you're the doctor, Dr. Story, what were some of the criteria?
A lot of stuff crammed in to me, okay, it was logical, but it was just too much in one, well, in one asset, right? There were several different assets, but there was just too much in one asset, or in several of them. There were just too much, and I was just trying. I was placing myself in the shoes of the, I say, poor sales guy, because if I had been the sales guy and I know what pressure normally sales guys are working under, I would have torn my hair. I would not have had the time to go through all of that material. And,
yeah.
and through all of the material, try to figure out, okay, what of this is actually relevant for the customer I'm going to meet tomorrow? And based on all of this, what can I actually say to the customer? And out of what I can say to the customer, well, what couldn't the competition have said?
Right.
there were several things that.
So let me repeat what I'm hearing. It's a lot of content that's like a lot of words crammed in. It's a lot of about them, not the customer, and it's also kind of jumping topics. It's not necessarily organized in a way that customers would want to digest it. It's jumbled and not clear how to use it in a specific meeting.
It wasn't even for the customer. It was an attempt to try to help the sales guy, but the sales guy was left to make all the interpretation and translation into a language and that would resonate and be meaningful for the customer.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. What were you going to say, Mark?
So are we looking at a different process to provide? I mean, again, you have to have some content in some fashion. I mean, it has to be available. But let's say you have a customer in the middle, and you got all these different companies looking at them, and they all hopefully are defining their approach at the level, at the point of engagement, in terms of what type of problem or issue or outcome, again, the client's trying to have. And then all the content that should be created for salespeople should be around that conversation initially. This is what you should be using when you're having these conversations around what outcomes they have, whether it's how you question, and not about our product at all, but again, about their challenges, their solutions, how it's affecting them through different lenses, well before you get into pieces that show how that's solved. Is that what we're doing? So we're changing maybe the order of assets that salespeople have and how it's used during the sales cycle. Because what we're thinking is it's all product based, and the content should be engagement, conversation based around what outcomes the client should have and what issues and challenges they have before they get to points of differentiation.
Yeah, yes, the challenge with that is everybody believes they're doing that. We're all focused on the customer, guys. We are all focused on the challenge. We all know
what the
challenge is. What's that?
Shouldn't the salespeople be the ones to answer that?
They're too busy, and we've given them all this stuff, and they said they like it.
Okay.
And our metrics say they click on it.
Hmm.
But here's the award winner for sales enablement tool and sales enablement content. So to Helena's point, who wakes up and goes, I need smart connectivity today? See, it's organized topically.
Yep.
Smart, I need to learn about smart farms, as opposed to I'm a smart farmer who has a problem with whatever. You see how organized this is by product, this whole thing? And
Yep.
then as a salesperson, oh, I need an article. Let me go get an article. Nobody does that. They're like, oh man, I really need to learn about how to calculate productivity. I don't know if it's an article, a white paper, an infographic, a video. I don't care what the type is. I want to know what the content is. So it's not organized by problem area, exploration area, outcome to talk about. I don't know if it's early in the sales process. I don't know if it's late in the sales process. It doesn't. How does this help me move? It's just a bunch of information. And yet they're an award winner. They won the award for sales enablement content based on how it looks, how simple and a lot of white space it is, because salespeople are stupid. And salespeople, we need to keep this to a manageable list because they can only handle so much because they're all ADD and they're dumb. So let's make sure that this is all organized. And then when we say, hey, salespeople, here's all your help, you can get an Outlook message with a pre-filled, you can get an Outlook email with a pre-filled message. That's all you need to do, Mark, is you just go here and you click that button and your sale moves forward.
Damn.
Yeah. So that's how dumb you are, is so let me help you with that. Let me help you with what to say, you idiot. Right? So this is an example of productitis. Now, how do you bring it up is the question. And well, maybe that's the question. I don't know what the question is, but the question is, well, the symptom is productitis. We know there's a lot of complexity. One of the things that is a challenge is we're dealing with ecosystem issues, and it depends.
Okay.
And, when you're an award winner and you have this criteria and people are high-fiving you on your stuff, and then here comes the orchestrator named Brian saying, hey, you guys have a sickness that's killing you. How do you combat that?
All right. So productitis is a symptom, and the root cause is complexity is one of them,
Mhm.
right? Are there any other ones you could list besides complexity? Silo-driven approach, or
But the idea that we know our products and we don't know our customers, so we're just better off talking about what we know about.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, because boy, do people believe they know their customer, man. Have you ever tried to tell people they don't know the customer? Holy crap. You better wear a bulletproof vest if you actually say that to any of your clients. They get super defensive and super pissed off. So how do we prove that they don't know their clients?
Right.
And then what do you do when you give them, hey, you have stage 4 productitis? And they get that, what's the treatment plan for that? Because it would really suck to prove that they have stage 4, stage 5 productitis. And then you go, yep, see, told you, I gotta go to lunch. Oh, geez. You know, I don't know what we're gonna do about it, but I proved my point. You got stage 5 and I'm busy. And, you know, if we just do this onboarding training that I've been focused on, you know, or whatever, right? What's the treatment plan? That's all separate. The treatment plan is secondary, but I'm just saying, we got to be careful we don't hold the mirror up in a way that's going to blow back on us. But helping people see productitis is definitely on the right path. Who are the people that are responsible for tackling productitis? Who are we going to orchestrate with to tackle it?
What would be some of the, again, and I think you probably had it on another slide, Brian. Again, I mean, symptoms, okay, you got productitis, but let me, you know, there's a skin lesion, and then it starts with, you know, blood pressure problems. I mean, there's obviously other components to it that would show up. A lot, you know, showing that you have. So, I mean, so how would you prove what either outcome or lack of an outcome or something would prove that they don't know their customer? Would you go to a piece of content and say, this is all about the product, this has nothing to do with the customer?
Well, you can try it. It's just, it doesn't work usually. I don't know if Eric, you've done that at all. I know you're in the space, but I think when you audit content, scoring it out, saying that asset's not, there's just a lot of wiggle room for people around it.
Or the salespeople can't use it. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's, again, the litmus test is, to me, it's, again, if that's the...
Yeah.
Mark, I think one question to ask, it's not just, you know, can the sales guy use it? Very important, I believe, also to ask, in what context can the sales guy use it or not?
Right.
A lot of content in many organizations are created only for the sales guy. There are several organizations who are extremely proud over that they have fantastic content. Okay, for whom?
Right.
well, is any of the content assets that the sales guy actually can bring with him or her into a customer conversation or not?
Yeah, is it customer facing, or is it
Yeah,
rep knowledge that the rep has
Right.
to interpret?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's, okay, makes perfect sense. And again, it could be what's the engagement strategy, and how much of it is demo driven and click through and everything else before someone even gets to it, and how much of that content is, again, customer facing and is problem oriented or outcome oriented, or is it, hey, here's our product. But I see, 10 observations leading to productitis. There we go.
Yeah, so here's what I've seen, right? So we're dealing with systems where the sum of the parts is supposed to be greater than the whole, right? That's why you build businesses. The question that I have is that even happening? And when you look at the commercial ratio, in many cases, it's not. There are a lot of investments being made to promise that our company can help clients, that a company can help customers, but it doesn't show up in front of the customer, right? The salesperson can't navigate, and they cannot articulate. So by that I mean there was this piece of we did the webinar, and Scott put this one up. The salesperson clearly shows they understand my business issues and can plainly articulate to me how to solve them. The business issues of today are of the complex ecosystem nature. They're not simple tasks that you can just send an email on and move the sales forward. Especially when it's how to solve them involves the whole entire company behind you. The promise of the company that you're representing as a salesperson, and you're trying to bring those capabilities into the client. That's what they're buying, is that promise. So as a salesperson, being able to understand the business issues and clearly explain how to solve them relies on as much change management and process as it does technology features. But a lot of salespeople aren't even equipped to have a change management conversation with their clients about how do you enroll and drive a coalition to implement cross-functional business impact. It's just buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. So they can't articulate how to navigate through the dilemma. So the sum of the parts doesn't become greater than the whole. It just becomes we have a bunch of parts.
And one of the problems with that is also, I find that if you just look at those parts, what you fail to articulate clearly to the customer is the capabilities that are actually what is of value often to the customers, because it's based on the capabilities that you can help them solve the business problems they have. It's not down to one particular feature or it can be
it's like the assembling a bunch of things together to help the client be successful. And those capabilities that you've assembled, these ingredients that you've cobbled together from across your company, are delivered in a way that moves the client forward. And
yeah, if I'm the client and I'm looking to buy myself some form of useful means of transportation, well, I'm not interested in okay, so what is the wheel, what is the motor? I'm interested in the car. That's my first interest. Okay, then I might want a special motor. I might want some nice flashy wheels, but the first thing I'm looking for in total is the car.
Yeah. So in that view, the challenge in that view is, um, where's the message, where's the content that explains the sum of the parts is greater than the whole of our company? In other words, what are the capabilities, or more importantly, the value, the impact we can bring to help you, customer, be successful? That is different than here's our articles and white papers, and it's the contents of it. It's not the asset itself. It's what are they talking about? And a lot of this has been simplified to the point where it doesn't even make any sense. If you step back and look at it, it doesn't even make sense yet. In sales today, especially enterprise accounts, there's a need to bring the whole value of the company together over time, in a journey over time, to hundreds of customer stakeholders. And people think it's because you don't understand their product is why you can't navigate that, and that leads to productitis. The second one is, and these are doozies, so these are there's an inherent ability to predict the future, and yet so much of what marketing and sales does is say this is going to lead to XYZ sales, and that false sense of security propagates spend and more spending with the promise of growth. But then they haven't realized, the people in charge and the people propagating these things, they haven't realized that you have no control, because you can't predict the future. You can only live in the now, and you have to be more relevant in what's happening now. There is no predicting the future today. That's why forecasts never work. Yet we have to tell our forecast, and we have to submit our hit our commit buttons, and we have to report to our investors what next quarter is going to look like. We have to make these projections. So what can you control in that is product. It gives us an ability to micromanage people to push our product, because the alternative is go figure out what customers want, and it's too fuzzy. We can't control that. Can't predict what customers want. So let's double down on our product. Right? So that's 2 out of 7. And I know I don't have any answers, but these are the reasons why it's like this. I was listening to a call with Scott yesterday, and he's talking about crackheads and meth addicts, and how the obsession with, and the fix, got to get the fix of product, because it relieves this anxiety and this pressure to be customer centric. When you can't answer questions like these things, you focus on product because it's what you know.
Yep.
You got to get your product fixed. Got to get your product fixed. Got to get an injection of product to, instead of leaning into, hey, we can't predict the future of complex business systems. We can only figure out how to be relevant now, today, in a conversation. How do we equip it? The next one is, growth emerges from stagnation when diversity of thought and actions exceed the threshold of complexity, holding growth back. Basically, it's a equilibrium. Ecosystems like equilibrium, but to change an ecosystem, you have to overcome the threshold of complexity with something else. And that's the hard part of running around saying we orchestrate the whole thing, and all you people don't, because we haven't built the momentum to even get on equal footing with all of that complexity. We can't provide an all, because everybody thinks in terms of the entire marketing engine, the entire sales engine. So in this view, you can only say, look, in our microcosm, we got this working in spite of the complexity. Are you curious about what's working? That's the only way. But orchestrators running around saying, well, we can fix all this, and the whole entire thing is broken. You can't overcome that whole stack of complexity. It's going to keep holding you back, and you're going to get eviscerated by the system. You get literally beat up. I mean, I've been in that space where everybody's like, I'm like, this whole ecosystem's messed up, I'm going to fix it. And you just get killed. by the whole entire ecosystem. Just everybody comes at you. And the hard part about it is they think they're helping. So you have to get a foothold. And that's what orchestration is about showing what works in the face of complexity. But because of that complexity, that's why we have productitis, because you double down on that in the hopes that it's going to work. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I'm doing my Rodney Dangerfield. Suddenly I'm depressed.
Yeah. Well, there is a, this is, you've got stage 4. You got stage 5, man. But there is a treatment plan we've been developing. We've got some top secret drugs and treatment protocols. And we've got our head orchestrator that can help. So there is a way out of this, but we have to understand the challenge, because as soon as you leave this room, you're going to get all kinds of advice. You're going to get all kinds of advice from everybody who's going to tell you how to fix this. And 99.9% of them are wrong, because it's what people know, because they haven't dwelt in the problem. The fourth one is much of the order in business is due to bureaucratic top-down decision-making, existing business relationships, and loose links between functions. This is a perceived order, but today the order is gone. The decision-making is every day a new decision. Relationships are tattered because everybody's got turnover, and COVID has made everybody isolate. And there are no links between functional activities. There's only coordination of project plans, basically. Did you get your shit done?
Right.
Did you get it done? There is no actual, there's very, very little co-creation, unless you're at Apple, cranking out an iPhone 12 Max Pro, because it's a product. It's a physical thing that people can focus on. A lot of today's challenges these are not physical products. These are called capabilities. These are intrinsic value that you can't put your head around. You can't touch it. It's our smart people working together with your smart people, and it's not a product. Yet we want this tangible concreteness of explaining it in a brochure. So that creates productitis. So we create more brochures. Number 5 is there's all these market forces and internal pressures that push functional activities towards disorder. So more creates more complexity and more disorder, creates more friction and more uncoordinated initiatives, which creates more burnout and more turnover in people, creates more fragmented processes, creates technologies that don't talk to each other, and conflicting information, which is the opposite. I just went through the orb, basically. It's the opposite of the orb. The 4 nodes of the orb are people, process, information, and technology. When you devolve the information, devolve the process, your people have friction, and the technologies don't work. You're at the opposite of orchestration, which is, what? Broke, the shit doesn't work. I want a refund. So this is that's why I was trying to focus on what's the math around this a little bit, and what's the waste here. That's all this friction and that we're going to walk into. The 6th one is people at all levels resist these pressures towards disorder. People hate disorder. They can't stand it. We don't like having these 6 things in front of us right now. It makes us queasy. That's human nature. The more we talk about these things, the more queasiness we get, until, just like a trauma surgeon in the emergency room, it becomes normal and it doesn't bother us anymore. But to get to the point where you can actually talk about this stuff, you get these emotive, queasy feelings, and people can't stand it. So they put more fake controls in, and they divvy up all the work to get control by micro slicing everything out to a task. And that's a perspective of control. So my inbox, if I can clear my inbox, then everything is good in the world. And if I did what I did before, I won't get fired at a human level. And so then here we come around going, let's fix that. We have a blank sheet of paper. Let's create a new type of content asset that's going to help salespeople sell more. And this blank sheet of paper scares the shit out of people. Sorry for my language. I call it the blank sheet of paper syndrome. They would rather go to Google and get a template and fill it in than face this. People cannot face this today. It's incredibly difficult. And then the last one is complexity and waste comes up when there's a failure of these controls, because the perception of activity leads to more product and what we already know, instead of leaning into let's innovate. And again, there's no space to innovate. Phil was here. He got pulled in from the system. He's not back. It's exactly the exact problem right there. An orchestrator was coming in to have white space in our think tank, and he got called in the principal's office, probably for some bullshit productitis thing that doesn't matter, right? That everybody thinks is the World War, the most important thing of the day. And then there'll be another most important thing of the day tomorrow. It's never ending. So, the art of what I call strategic delay. When everybody's spun up and you don't buy into it, and then a week later it's all gone. But during the week, you think you're gonna get fired. You strategically delay and don't engage, and people go batshit crazy, and then they find something else to go crazy about next week. So these are these symptoms that lead to productitis, which gives you more product, more product, more product. That is safe. We got it done. We clear all 7 of these by focusing on the product. Instead of addressing any of these, the answer is do more product. And then you build stuff like this, build this. That's how you overcome all that, is do this. Build this. Win awards. So that is, to me, the challenge of productitis. What do you think of these 7? Now that you've got your queasy, which I understand. It's big. Do you agree with them? Do they make sense? Is it am I being overly dramatic?
They are not that easy, actually, at least for me to wrap my head around.
Mm-hmm.
It's because when I looked at first at number 1, in business as in other complex systems, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. To me, that made sense, but not really in the line of creating or leading to productitis. Because when I read that, what I was thinking, so the whole is much more simple to talk about and explain than all of the different parts. So all of the different parts, that if you focus on loads and loads of content around all of the different parts, if you talk that part of self-development, that is for sure productitis, whereas the whole, it's more the solution to get rid of productitis, because if you focus on the whole rather than all of the parts, then you have sort of to almost shift to a more holistic, more outside-in view than the inside out when it comes to every detailed part. You follow my thinking there?
Yeah, I like it. So maybe these are just maybe the title's wrong on the slide. But I like your idea of the focus on the whole. And what I was saying is that who's really focused on the whole? And because we're not focused on the whole, we end up in productitis.
Right. That's what.
And then because we cannot predict the future, we attempt to predict the future by cranking more content out because we think we're predicting the future, but the reality is you can't. So these are realities that we don't address that propagate productitis because we don't confront this reality that this is an ecosystem.
There are people in an organization who, if they're doing their job right, ought to be thinking holistically. CEO, I would say product managers, system architects, folks like that, and of course, orchestrators.
Mhm.
And I would also say in many business-to-business organizations, the really great sales guys, because they are orchestrators. And what they need to identify on the customer side is who is the orchestrator on the buyer side.
Mhm.
And the seller orchestrator who can orchestrate, that person needs to understand the whole, needs to understand the capabilities that the whole provides to enable the vision of the customer company. But he doesn't have to be an expert on all of the parts. His job is to orchestrate all of the different resources in the selling company so that the customer gets the whole, gets the capabilities that enable them to achieve their visions and outcomes.
I think that's a good call out, right? That enterprise rep has to be the master of all orchestrators because they have to orchestrate what's going on in their own dysfunctional organization, plus the organization of every single one of their prospects and customers. Wow, that's a lot.
Well,
Yeah. So here's a story.
They have to identify who on the buyer side is the orchestrator there.
Yeah, there was a call I was listening to. So there's this global account director, and she's the global account director of in a $20 billion company. She has to work across 80 countries and orchestrate the orchestrators, who then need to orchestrate the customers' orchestrators to orchestrate everybody else inside the client organization. And she had a team, and that team got cut, and she said, I need more resources. Her executives said, why do you need more resources? Well, I have to interface with people in 80 different countries. I'm trying to organize the big picture of our client, of our company for our client, and explain the value of the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And he's like, oh, well, you don't have a resource problem, you have a solution problem. You haven't explained the product well. She's like, no, I physically can't go and talk to people in 80 countries to help them all see the same thing that leads to a renewal, because I physically can't be on the phone that much or on Zoom calls that much, or it's a coverage problem. No, it's a solution problem. That literally happened 2 days ago. And that account that she's trying to navigate spends something like $45 million with the client, with her company. She can't get resources. She has 2 people covering 80 countries.
Mhm.
And the executives are saying that's a solution problem.
So what are the executives doing to fix the solution?
Oh, they've been spending a lot of money on the product and the solution,
course.
and they bought companies and they integrated them, and you just have to sell it. You just have to sell that. We invested and have spent all this money to create an integrated platform. Go sell the platform.
And look, it works in the spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they are not fixing her problem, I think they are not going to have her very long with them.
Well, we'll just get new people.
Yeah.
Right. So this is,
Okay, well, what are they going to do differently? How are they going to,
well, who's they? And yeah, I
Right,
understand the
right.
question, but this is the ecosystem reality showing up in, you'd think that $45 million are at stake, but the answer is it's our product. This is stage 5 productitis at the senior most levels. So the path forward treatment plan that we're trying to do is, look, for one of the, there's this thing. So let me relieve some of the challenge here. Like what I found out, and what is the path forward? How do you work on this, right? And I was asking, I was talking to Scott, I'm like, how are we gonna, this is too big for any, like, what are we doing, barking up the wrong tree? This was like 2 or 3 years ago. Is this even doable? Because you end up with this doubt of like, this is such a massive thing. Like, is this even doable? Can we even do this? And this is what led to orchestrate sales, though. So I'll show you. Shoot, where the hell's I'm trying to get to this slide. Okay, here it is. But this is why we're here in orchestrate sales. Is this very, very issue. And it is this. I'm trying to move it into a, okay. So
You are showing us the 7 reality slides, though.
yeah, here it comes. Okay. So Gall's law says all complex systems at work have evolved from simpler systems that work. If you want to build a complex system that works, you got to build a simpler one first. That's it. That's how you fix this.
Cool. Who's this
So,
Gall person?
some famous dead guy. I don't know. But so that's why orchestrate sales is here, is how do we create this as a lab and build a simpler one? If 5 or 6 people can't do it, how is 10,000 people going to do it? Is the premise. Well, how do we orchestrate and fix this stuff across 3 or 4 or 5 people? And how do we go in and have a conversation? Now, what we just outlined are big ecosystem problems at the senior, highest level. That's a different issue. But to even have a shot at tackling that issue, we have to get traction and show that orchestration works in some regard and have some proof points. We need to make it a thing to counter these 7 challenges. And that means we need people to actually do it and make it work. So it's to actually scope it way down. It's a big, huge ecosystem problem that makes us queasy. The path forward is start with a pebble and then ripple from there. So how do we do that? And then that's where orchestrate sales came from. Maybe we can create a team of people who tackles these types of issues in teams of small teams, and then we share what we learn with others and we ripple out.
So do you see this as, no, that's good. I mean, so as I'm looking at this, when you get inserted into an organization, right? And okay, and they're suffering from productitis. And so again, I think we talked about this earlier, that, you hopefully assemble over time, maybe it's 1 or 2 people, maybe it's 3 that you have that talk track with, and then you begin to have these conversations around this, and then work in these small groups to expand and these conversations. I would think, instead of going to the chief marketing officer or chief revenue officer and saying, well, you know what, you've got productitis and here's all the issues that there are. So it's kind of, this embryo kind of has to grow from within.
Yeah.
To envelop people so they see these things, and then the organization changes, in some degree over that, I would think.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you change an institution or a society? You start very small.
Right.
You start with the family unit or below, and you if you can affect families, you can affect societies. If you tear families apart, you can tear societies apart. Is the bad part about that. But if you look at this Gall's law, he did a lot of work with human behavior but he was actually a pediatrician. But he basically said, look, any complex system has always come from another simple system that work. If you try to create a complex system from scratch, it never works, and it can't be patched up to make work. You have to start with a working simple system. So if we're going to orchestrate, where's the simple system? Where do you start and how do you do it? That's really critical. And what's the difference between 3 people orchestrating and 3 people communicating? What's the difference between 3 people running a project and 3 people orchestrating? Right? These are, if we're going to draw some distinction on it, what does that look like? So that's how we tackle the ecosystem challenge.
I don't know. I mean, it's almost as if it's like courses of action versus milestones or outcomes. Because we don't.
Well, it's definitely not milestones and outcomes, right? So, like for example,
I'm saying it's not milestones or outcomes. That's very project oriented, and we're having a conversation. Say, well, in our conversation, it's around the well. So here's our course of action to infiltrate, change this, their focus, attention, and thinking, and but without coming, where is it working? How do we know? Which is without coming up with being solution oriented.
Well, I like the idea where you're going. It's this idea. So in the past, what you would do is you'd say, here's our goal. Let's break it into milestones and divvy up the work.
Right.
So if the goal is, look, we're going to impact the ecosystem by getting a smaller, simpler system to work, and we're going to get this go-to-customer thing to work in a small microcosm, where do you do that?
Yeah,
you can do that in a single strategic account. You can do that in maybe a single account with single 4 or 5 person team. How do we equip that team? What do we give the orchestrator to start small when the whole entire ecosystem is wired to go big? Everybody wants it for all salespeople right out of the gate, and that's what they buy. So that's why we have to lean into, as orchestrators, we are also observers, dot connectors, detectives, and we have, like to your point, we have approaches, techniques, principles, guardrails, maybe some disciplines or a code of conduct that we apply, a scientific method, how do doctors and researchers study diseases?
Right, and that's really what we're doing, right? And what we're documenting as we're growing this, as this embryonic process continues, so that we build proof points to enable us to, eventually someone says, well, hey, what's happening over there? Look at all this, and till you come to the point where you can bring evidence to the right people with, here's what's happened as we've started, this small, and here's what we've seen, and here's how we've documented it. And then that, who knows when you hit that threshold, when that happens. If that's even a part of the process.
Yeah. That's where we were talking about the Trojan horse.
Right.
How do you insert yourself as a Trojan horse inside of the ecosystem and do your thing under the radar? Because the more you are visible, the more the system beats the crap out of you. So it's almost like, how do we have the business as usual? We're part of the machine, doing what everybody else is doing, while at the same time carve off some sort of pilot or
these covert meetings.
Yeah, that can get something working. And then how do you get something working when those people are going to be buffeted by all the forces? So if you get something working with 4 people, those 4 people are getting hammered by the system. So those 4 people need to be shored up and protected as well. I tried this once. I tried to create a secret society inside of a company where it was like the secret society and we're going to figure this out. Doesn't work. People, it's too too covert. I tried it. I called it the Ironwood Society
Secret
because
handshake.
we signed a code, and we were like, we had like secret meetings and stuff. People, they kind of freaked out about it.
Okay, you were in fixed class or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this and not tell anybody, because the more people we tell, the more people are going to come after us. And I had to go get an executive. Here, I found it. I had to go get an executive to help to sign off on that we're going to have our society of secret people to figure out how to do this. And I built this charter to get C-level, and this is their founding members. And I made it look like an old Western. And, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure it out? I had the executive sign it, right? And here's what we believe. We're going to focus on customers. We're going to have a voting process. We're going to have playing the tape. We're going to learn as we go. We're going to not respond to RFPs. We're going to buck the system, and here's exactly how we're going to do it. And I had the executive sign off on it. So down here is our head, our SVP. We signed it, and our SVP signed it. He's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. They wouldn't do it. I even had executive buy-in and how we're going to impact it. And I spelled it all out, how we were going to buck the system and not do what everybody else was doing. And people wouldn't do it. They wigged out after 3 months because it was too different. It wasn't what everybody else was doing. So because everything around them was different, and everything around them was telling them that this was, wrong. And so there's a lot of detail around that people want to see around go to customer, and they want to understand it. And it's tough questions to become a Trojan horse. I forgot I built the secret society. So the human nature element of this is tough. It's a lot of change management, and you have to have a band of people who stick together, to tackle it. So, which I think is the cool part about it. I like that. So what do you think? So now that we've outlined this challenge and it's massive, but we've also talked about how we can do something small, and there's all these ingredients. I gave 3 or 4 stories of from the executive level to the lowest level person that this hasn't necessarily panned out. What do you think I've been missing in the ingredients? What could I be doing differently? How would you guys coach me to try this again? What advice would you give?
I think there's something to gain from sort of drawing from all these other academic endeavors besides business, right? And we've been talking about ecology and medicine and systems thinking and that sort of stuff. Because in some ways, the great Earth and the great universe has figured a lot of this stuff out, right? And I find the MBA degree to be one of the most bizarre educations on the planet, because it's the only one I can think of that when you graduate from the program and you go to work, you say, no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Right. The heart surgeon never says, that's bullshit, I'm going to cut this one over here. The civil engineer never says, we don't need 5 rivets, we're going to do it in just one. It's like
right.
Like this stuff is taught to the executives.
Right. Yeah.
And we talked last week about emergent systems, and I've really grabbed onto that. I thought it was cool, right? And whether the school of fish is really acts this way, keep moving and don't lose your partner. We talked about, Gall's law, who I looked up. He happened to be a pediatrician. Which I think is an interesting connection.
Interesting. Yeah.
And this might be even though it might be the answer, it might be too difficult to deal with. But how do we get down to the individual employee at an organization? And what are those fundamental basic behaviors and attitudes that they need to bring for the complex system to work?
Yeah. And this is where I got a little depressed over it too. And then Scott's like, look, cave people had to figure out how to survive, and they didn't even have language, and they still figured out how to. As humans, we figured it out. There have been massive challenges in time where the human, race has figured things out. That's what makes us unique, our ability to adapt. So how do we embrace this as a challenge in the evolution of our species? Right? We've moved from dwelling in caves to figuring out fire and wheels and coming up with societies, and nobody sat around and blueprinted all that out. It just happened because of our need for innovating and our desire to thrive. So how do we thrive in this, and how do we embrace it? And that's where the innovation comes in, leaning into it and exploring it, and what if, and trying, and learning by doing and attempting. And don't do that, you might get bit by that snake. Let's not do that again. Like, one of the weird things is almonds used to kill people. They have what, cyanide in them? So over time we've learned how to grow almonds that don't kill people, but that's a lot of trial and error with life and death consequences. I don't think this is that life and death, but we still figured it out as humans, right? We're not trying to launch people into outer space and get them back. Yet we did that in 7 years, and yet in sales and marketing we can't figure out how to have a sales conversation, right? These are the things that Scott points out. Between the time that Kennedy said we're going to put on the man on the moon, which we had to invent math for and figure out how to even get him back, and we put human lives in our hands, we did that in 7 years. And in 10 years of sales enablement, we just keep redefining it over and over again. So that's why I'm really passionate about trying to figure this out. I think you're right. It's like, how do we lean into that? Explore it.
Well, the power of the caveman brain and the lizard brain should not be underestimated.
Yeah. And so that queasy feeling, Mark, that's a real thing. That's a fight or flight. And so in the journey of all this, how do we help people get that queasy feeling in a safe way and get them through it? So, and then equip them to get out of the cave and then stick together, because sticking together is how we kill the big animal, and oh, by the way, that's how we go kill the other species off, is by sticking together. That's how we survive. So that type of an approach, the human nature of that, is a real thing.
Yeah.
And the power comes from working together.
Is it a change management issue then?
It's much more
organizational structure.
Point.
We can't change the organizational structure, right? I mean, in general, org charts are org charts. How organizations are, they have to get certain things done. But how those people approach their role and what they focus on, and how they work together for this, again, customer facing or customer outcome goal is they need to do things differently. So in the end, it is a change manage initiative, and people resist change for lots of reasons, right? I took a certification through ATD's change management program, and it's just all about communicate. Their models, I don't know. Good book by, again, Andrea Britt on Wired to Resist. We are wired to resist. And her suggestion was begin at how the change affects the individual and work at the individual level. There's that slope of change, how deep it is. Everyone goes through awareness, denial, shit, I'm going to lose my job. I don't want to deal with this. Oh my God, to, hey, okay, it's okay, acceptance, yada, yada. And whether that curve is very steep and quick or whether it's long and, prolonged due to organizational structure or the type of disruptive change. So we're disrupting people in a sense on how they're doing things and how they're looking to do things. So it seems to me that it's a change management model to affect the type of change we're looking to affect, I would think.
Yeah.
And
I think, so I've had this kind of conversation a lot, and it's an interest with Scott in particular. He's very, he doesn't want to go at the individual level, and I'm very much on the individuals. You got to bring them along and all that. And I think it's a both, where we're kind of finding middle ground. Is the thing about cave people that made cave people change was the environment around them. So the environment had to change, and then they had to figure it out to evolve the environment. So he's focused on, look, how do we clarify the environment so that human nature kicks in and people want to tackle it, right? How do we create clarity of this environment so that the change will happen over time, and we'll find the right people to embrace in that. If we don't define the environment and we go at individuals, we're going one by one, and we're never going to get everybody. It's going to take too long. But what cave people did was, hey, we're in this environment. The ice age is coming. We better change or we're going to die. It became very clear and tangible that we have to adapt. Or there's these, we're sick. We're sick of eating grubs and worms. It'd be really cool to kill a rabbit or a mastodon. The environment around us, how do we engage in it? So that's where we've been focused on, is the environment and creating these experiences that allow people to explore it and also to engage in that. And then backfilling with, okay, I need skills, I need knowledge, I need to learn how to do this and learn by doing, and I need to get on the bike and try it. How do we create an environment for that kind of learning? And then that tackles a lot of the psychology along the way. And that's the orchestrating of the environment is just as critical as engaging one-on-one to keep people on the bus. So it's kind of peanut butter chocolate. That's where we're currently at. What do you guys think of that?
Well, there's a whole body of work around coaxing people into change that, from a therapy standpoint or a addiction standpoint, that I personally find useful, because, you can get and you were talking about it earlier in the call, right? I mean, there's the meth addict, right? I mean, they know intellectually that they have to stop shooting this shit up, but they just can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, an extreme example that seems like, there could be some learnings there that we could apply to a more civilized corporate environment where hopefully people aren't coming in all strung out.
Yeah, right.
But there's the awareness and traditionally there's 5 phases of change, from I don't have a problem to it's completely licked. And you can people will fluctuate in between those on their journey toward having a perfectly orchestrated system. There are going to be moments of time when the fear for their job or the nostalgia for the way things used to be, or the vanity of loving their product so much are going to creep in. But it's a journey moving away from productitis into, I don't even know if this exists, but customer-titis.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and customer experiences and that simplify everything, you know, makes everything better, but it just seems so far, so far away to a lot of people.
Just like the homeless meth addict that's like, oh man, I would love to just have a warm place to sleep, or a cool place to sleep, depending on what temperature is outside.
Yeah.
Nah, that's no fun.
I think commercial enablement, sales enablement, in my definition, is very much about changing the business.
Mm-hmm.
There are others who are running the business. And
Yeah.
And if you sales operations help run the business, frontline sales managers holding the drumstick, they are running the business. The senior sales executives, the very senior ones, the senior sales leaders, they are more in the change and transform the business. And we are enabling that change, that transformation of the business to stay current, not just now, but in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So a sales enabler and a commercial enabler, commercial orchestrator need to have much more of a future orientation, much more of a future oriented hat.
Yeah. To
Yes.
paint a picture of the future and envision the future and stretch to the future. And I like to innovate to help you get there.
Yeah, and looking at, okay, so it's, executive leadership and the board have a vision of where is the company going.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commercial enabler's job to ensure that when it comes to everything that has to do with sales and marketing, well, that is possible. But it's not just about sitting there and from what the CEO and team have stated, this is the vision of the company. It's not just about, well, deducting from that. Okay, so let's take a look at the whole selling and marketing system, the commercial system. Is it up to, is it, in par? Is it able actually to achieve the vision that the C-suite has stated? And therefore we assess, and we as orchestrator, we identify, no, it's not this and this and this in this selling and marketing systems, that needs to change. Our job is also, I find, very much to be one of the sparring partners, one of the advisors of the C-suite to come up with ideas, with innovation, to say, well, if we do this and this, actually the company would be able to do that and that as well. So we are contributor, very active contributor to the vision creation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And we operate and connect between that stretching. We're providing we're filling the gap between the current reality and the future state. We help get there in a structured way.
Enable the future state.
Yeah. Yeah.
but we are also, I think, part of the co-creation of the future states.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I think if you compare a commercial enablement function with a many of sophisticated sales consultancies out there, I think when you look at commercial enablement functions, they have more of the holistic systems thinking. They are not just there to tackle a couple of issues or connect certain dots along certain lines, if you like. It's the overarching. Our job is really the connection to the vision of the company, to enabling the go-to customer.
Almost an advocacy position, if you will, because if you speak from a posture of advocacy, it's a very powerful posture because it's not about yourself, it's on behalf of someone else, and it allows you to have these conversations at a deeper, more meaningful level because you're speaking on behalf of the organization and the future of the organization, not my department, not this particular piece. So
yeah, absolutely, and
it's almost what I'm hearing.
It's inherent because we are cross-functional.
Right.
And apart from people in the C-suite, how many on the organization are cross-functional?
Most are dysfunctional, not cross-functional.
Yeah, and I like where we're going with that. Keep thinking about it. The advocacy part, I understand the intent there, and sometimes we don't have words, right? So when I hear advocacy, it's like we're like advocating for what's truly right, or how to really get there. The challenge is, I don't want. So part of orchestrate sales is let's actually do it. What are we going to orchestrate and practice on ourselves to say not only should people be doing it, which I can't stand shoulding on people, as you know, but we say here's what we did and here's what we learned and here's how we actually did it. We are, so for example, we're going to tackle the sales enablement challenge, which is nobody's focused on this. We're going to help try to advocate for this, to use your word, Mark, and explain how this works. But how do we get the credibility? It comes from actually doing it. So how do we do that at Orchestrate Sales? What can we do to put what we're talking about into practice at Orchestrate Sales, right? And then we say, look, you don't have to believe a damn thing we're saying. Here's what we did, and here's what the results were.
Right.
You know, we'll lead by example. There's a lot of sales enablement people running around just, you know, shitting on everybody that's in declaring the answer, and that doesn't work to tackle an
all of
ecosystem.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. So think about that, and just, you know, what can we do at Orchestrate Sales, and then how do we use this as a lab, and you know, what can we do to bring folks along is separate from how do we get it working for us, right? And what would that look like? Is it a project? Is it a are we trying to, what do we do to put some of this into practice?
I think well, I mean, the work that you and Scott have done with the podcast and the webinars and all of that is hugely valuable work, and I think that is very much part of getting others to understand what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, Brian, I really think that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Why do you say that? Like, what do you mean? Because we don't get a lot of feedback. We have a lot of wait and see.
Well, I mean, there are so many things, you know, when one is listening to one of the podcasts or watching one of the webinars that, you know, oh yeah, hadn't thought of that one, that is useful, and you can apply that, or well, that is that's a nice way of putting it. I have sort of articulated in this way before, but okay, if I articulate it that way instead, maybe in this case, it will resonate better with my target audience. So it's, but it's more than that, because it's also the holistic view. Most definitely, it's you have connected a number of the dots and put them, you know, in graphics, which is, I know that takes time to do that. I'm not saying that I always agree with you, and I think you know that I don't.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we want to have the pushback, and, you know, want to have the productive friction.
Yeah, but it's I think for everyone who is an orchestrator and is working on their own, or you know, in very small teams, it's one is challenged to, you know, reflect. So having listened to the podcast and watched the webinars, there is always something to reflect on.
Yeah. Yep.
And then think about, okay, how will I turn that into practice? Or what could I do in this and this organization?
Right. Cool. Well, I know we're over time, so I appreciate the extra time. Actually, no, we have a little bit of time left, don't we? Sorry. Are we over time or not? Let me look at my. Okay. But yeah, I'll let you guys go. I think I'm interested in, you know, where do we take this, right? So the roadmap view, we almost got through the whole thing. What I was thinking about is how do us 4 or 5 that have been coming, how do we relaunch this? And then who else do we get, and what do we do with them? So who can we invite? How do we get into another, you know, 90-day sprint with them, or whatever we're going to do? Is it 30 days, 45 days? And then what can we work through with people? And let's see if we can get people to get to a level of understanding where they want to tackle productitis, and maybe we can figure out a path, a journey, and this sequence of events and the sequence of information that would help people get here faster. You know, it's taken me 10 years to get here. Mark, maybe it took you, I don't know, 6 months. Maybe we get this down to a week. I don't know. You know, like, what is the path or the journey to get, and that is an approach, and that's a change management thing, right? So maybe there's some sort of onboarding path to tackling this that gives people confidence that this is, you know, a thing that we can tackle. So just things like that, think about those, and then let's see if we can relaunch this group with some fresh folks, and where we're tackling this together.
Okay, cool.
And there's a lot of options. So bring ideas to the next one, and let's use next week as a bit of a planning. How do we orchestrate something together, kind of thing, so that we can focus on the small unit and get it working around something. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. It was great to see you guys. I really appreciate these times together. It's been really good. Thanks so much.
See you guys.
See ya.
Brian.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.